Welcome to History with Herodotus, where the boundaries of time and space are bridged by the power of storytelling. Today, we embark on a fascinating journey through the tumultuous landscape of 20th century Germany as we explore the rise and decline of the Weimar Republic. This pivotal chapter in modern history is a tale of grand aspirations, shattered dreams, and the precarious balance between democracy and chaos. In the aftermath of World War I, the German Empire lay in ruins, its once mighty military defeated, its economy on the brink of collapse. The Treaty of Versailles, imposed by the Allied powers, inflicted severe penalties upon Germany, including crippling reparations and territorial losses. This toxic cocktail of economic hardship, national humiliation, and social unrest created a fertile ground for radical ideologies to take root. As we delve into the formative events leading up to the Weimar Republic's rise, we find ourselves in the midst of a nation grappling with the consequences of war and the search for a new identity. The German monarchy, which had ruled for centuries, was crumbling, and the socialist movement, led by figures like Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht, was gaining momentum. The Spartacist uprising in January 1919, though ultimately unsuccessful, marked a turning point in the struggle for power as it paved the way for the establishment of the Weimar Republic. In the midst of this turmoil, a young politician named Friedrich Ebert emerged as a key figure in shaping Germany's future. As the leader of the Social Democratic Party, Ebert played a crucial role in navigating the treacherous waters of German politics, walking a tightrope between the radical left and the conservative right. His vision for a democratic Germany, though imperfect, would serve as the foundation upon which the Weimar Republic was built. This historic document, which would come to be known as the Weimar Constitution, enshrined democratic principles, guaranteed individual rights, and established a federal system of government. The early months of the Weimar Republic were marked by power struggles, factional infighting, and economic turmoil. Hyperinflation, triggered by the catastrophic decline of the German mark, reduced the value of money to almost zero, leaving millions of citizens struggling to survive. The Ruhr Uprising in 1920, a failed attempt by communist insurgents to seize control of the industrial heartland, further destabilized an already fragile situation. As the Weimar Republic teetered on the brink of collapse, a complex web of alliances and rivalries began to take shape. The Communist Party of Germany, backed by Soviet Russia, vied for influence with the Social Democratic Party, while the conservative right, led by figures like Gustav Stresemann, sought to undermine the democratic experiment from within. Meanwhile, the seeds of radical nationalism, sown in the fertile soil of German resentment and disillusionment, began to germinate, waiting to be nurtured by the charismatic figure of Adolf Hitler. As the Weimar Republic struggled to find its footing, the rise of radical nationalism continued to gain momentum. On November 9, 1923, Adolf Hitler, then a relatively unknown figure, led a group of Nazi Party members in a failed attempt to seize power in Munich, known as the Beer Hall Putsch. Although the coup was unsuccessful, it marked a turning point in Hitler's career, as he gained national attention and began to build a loyal following. The mid-1920s saw a period of relative stability in Germany, often referred to as the golden years of the Weimar Republic. Under the leadership of Chancellor Gustav Stresemann, the government implemented a series of reforms aimed at stabilizing the economy and improving relations with other European nations. The Dawes Plan, introduced in 1924, provided Germany with a significant reduction in reparations payments, while the Locarno Pact of 1925 recognized Germany's borders and paved the way for its entry into the League of Nations. However, this period of stability was short-lived, as the global economic downturn of 1929 had a devastating impact on Germany. The stock market crash on Wall Street in October 1929 triggered a chain reaction of bank failures, business closures, and widespread unemployment. By 1930, over 3 million Germans were out of work, and the country was plunged into a deepening crisis. As the economic situation continued to deteriorate, the Nazi Party began to gain significant traction. In the federal election of September 1930, the Nazis won 107 seats in the Reichstag, becoming the second largest party in Germany. Hitler's charismatic leadership and his party's radical rhetoric, which blamed Jews, communists, and other minority groups for Germany's problems, resonated with an increasingly desperate population. One notable example of the Nazi Party's growing influence was the appointment of Heinrich Brüning as Chancellor in March 1930. Brüning's government implemented a series of austerity measures, including cuts to social welfare programs and increased taxes, which further exacerbated the economic crisis. As the situation continued to worsen, Hitler and his followers saw an opportunity to capitalize on the growing discontent. In January 1932, Hitler declared, "The German people will not be satisfied until they have a government that is truly national, a government that is determined to restore German honor and greatness." This statement encapsulated the Nazi Party's appeal to many Germans who felt humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles and desperate for a return to national pride. As the year 1932 drew to a close, Germany was on the brink of chaos. The economy was in shambles, the political system was gridlocked, and the Nazi Party was poised to make its move. On July 31, 1932, the Nazis won 230 seats in the Reichstag, becoming the largest party in Germany. Hitler's appointment as Chancellor on January 30, 1933, marked the beginning of the end for the Weimar Republic as he quickly set about consolidating power and dismantling the democratic institutions that had been established just over a decade earlier. The Enabling Act, passed on March 23, 1933, granted Hitler dictatorial powers, allowing him to bypass the Reichstag and govern by decree. This marked a significant turning point in German history, as the country embarked on a path of totalitarianism and aggression that would have far-reaching consequences for Europe and the world. As the Enabling Act granted Hitler dictatorial powers, the Weimar Republic's demise became all but certain. The Nazi Party, now unencumbered by the constraints of democracy, set about consolidating its control over every aspect of German life. The Reichstag, once a symbol of German democracy, was reduced to a mere rubber stamp for Hitler's decrees. The judiciary, too, was co-opted, with judges and lawyers either intimidated into silence or actively complicit in the Nazi regime's abuses. One of the most striking aspects of this period was the eerie silence that descended upon Germany. As Hitler's regime tightened its grip, dissenting voices were systematically silenced. The press, once a vibrant and diverse force in German life, was reduced to a mouthpiece for Nazi propaganda. The arts, too, were co-opted, with writers, artists, and musicians either forced into exile or compelled to produce works that conformed to the Nazi ideology. As the years passed, the consequences of Hitler's rule became increasingly apparent. The Nuremberg Laws, introduced in 1935, stripped German Jews of their citizenship and prohibited them from marrying non-Jews. The Kristallnacht pogrom of November 1938, in which synagogues and Jewish-owned businesses were attacked and destroyed, marked a new low in the Nazi regime's campaign of terror against Germany's Jewish population. The outbreak of World War II in September 1939 marked the beginning of the end for Hitler's regime. As the war turned against Germany, the Nazi leadership became increasingly desperate, resorting to ever more extreme measures to maintain control. The Holocaust, which had begun in earnest with the invasion of Poland, reached its gruesome climax in the death camps of Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Buchenwald. In the end, it was not the Nazi regime's military might that proved its undoing, but its own internal contradictions. As the Allies closed in on Germany from both east and west, the Nazi leadership was consumed by infighting and recrimination. Hitler himself, once the master of German politics, was reduced to a shadow of his former self, holed up in his bunker as the Soviet army closed in on Berlin. As the dust settled on the devastation of World War II, the world was left to ponder the legacy of the Weimar Republic and its tragic demise. The German historian Sebastian Haffner would later reflect that the collapse of the Weimar Republic was not just a German event, but a European one, with far-reaching consequences for the entire continent. The Weimar Republic is remembered as a cautionary tale about the dangers of complacency and the importance of defending democracy against its enemies. The rise and decline of the Weimar Republic serves as a stark reminder that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and that the consequences of failure can be catastrophic. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that, to understand the present, we must first understand the past.